Most New Year's resolutions fail. And if you're making a New Year's resolution, I'm going to tell you why yours is probably going to fail too. Now, I saw some statistic recently that said something like 56% of New Year's Eve resolutions fail. Nah, they're lying. About 90% of New Year's resolutions fail. And I'm going to tell you the 3 reasons why New Year's resolutions don't work. 1, real change. Real change in your life is internal and incremental. So hold on to that for a second. Number 2, most New Year's resolutions are made emotionally. It's hard to sustain emotion. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then 3, you have to really be honest with yourself about why you're making that New Year's resolution. So let me break it down for you. Now, this is just coming from a middle-aged guy. I done been around the block once or twice, so I done seen a thing or two. Still a lot more I need to go see. But this is what I see from my perspective and from some of my own life experience. When you make a New Year's resolution, like I say, number 1, real change is internal and incremental. So when you really want to make the change, it comes from inside. It comes from deep inside you. You can't necessarily explain it to people. You can't show it to people. You can't necessarily prove it to people. And it's not about proving it to them. It's about proving it to yourself. So real change is internal and incremental. It's internal, and it's like an internal fire. You can't really have a good hot fire. You can't really have flames coming out that fire into those embers, until it's burning real good on the inside. So real change is internal. And when you finally decide to make whatever change it is that you're trying to make in your life, to do more of something or to do less of something, or to be more even-handed, whatever the fuck it is, when you decide to make that change in your life, it didn't require New Year's. It didn't require a changing of the calendar. First of all, whose calendar is it? You got to go look up the history of the calendar. People way back in the day, they might make their changes based upon the season. But in modern day terms and how we think of making change today, when you talk about a New Year's resolution, it almost immediately lets me know you're not really ready to make change. Because if you were really ready to make change, you didn't need New Year's to start. It's almost like giving yourself an excuse, giving yourself a little cushion. I just need a little bit more time to bullshit, and then after this, I'm going to hit it strong. That's fine. That's understandable. Many times we do that. I'm going to, party hard tonight, and then after this, I'm knocking the books out. I'm going straight and sober and being disciplined. But the real change it's not about it turning midnight. It's not about once the party's over. It's not about when it's New Year's. Real change is internal, and when you're ready to make that change, it did not matter about it going from December 31st to January the 1st, and that's real. Also, real change is incremental, which means it takes time. It takes time. You think about one of the biggest changes in a person's life, and one of the biggest changes in almost every person's life is for the people who are fortunate enough to be able to walk. So as a baby, whenever the moment happens, when they take that first step, before they were even able to take that first step, they fell. They fell many times. But they thought they could do it. They wanted to do it. They needed to do it. It was internal. They just keep trying. And then they take a step and they fall. And then they take a step or two and they fall. Anybody that's a parent out there, anybody that's a dad out there, grandparent, whatever, uncle, aunt, cousin, if you've seen little babies learn how to walk, if you've seen anybody learn how to walk, you see the process. You see the progress. And it don't happen because they decided to do it. It didn't happen because they woke up from nap time and it was just time to start. It took time. It's incremental. So when you're talking this bullshit about New Year's Day, I'm going to start a whole new life, and no, you ain't. No, you ain't. I'm going to smoke on that one. No, you're not. I'll put money down that most of the people watching this video, because I have done it myself, and I've seen other people do it, I'm willing to, most of the people watching this video, when you say New Year's, you make a New Year's resolution, and in 2026, 2027, and you're going to start doing something new, you're bullshitting yourself, because you're putting it off on the changing of the calendar. When, like I said, real change is internal incremental. You're going to do it internally whenever you're ready to do it. And it's incremental, which means it takes time. It takes time. It takes repetition. I like this new thing that I've been thinking of, and so I've been trying to apply it myself in my life. You start off with self-discipline. Nothing's going to happen for you if you don't exercise a certain amount of self-discipline. And then hopefully, from continuing to try to implement self-discipline, you get to the point of self-mastery. And real things happen on that journey. Real things happen. And so, like I say, just to complete that analogy of a kid walking, they take a step or two. Then they fall. And it's cute and adorable because you know they've never done it before and there's more to come. And then they take a step or two. Now there's a certain point where they might even start to attempt to run, and then they fall and they hurt themselves with a little bit, blah, blah, blah. And they continue the journey, and then that person can end up becoming an Olympic runner. You know what I'm saying? And so that's change. Change is like, it's evolutionary. You know what I'm saying? It's internal and it's incremental. So you really, really want to make change for the new year? It's not based upon the new year turning. It's based upon you turning in the new year. You get what I'm saying? It's about you having that self-discipline to continue to try to change, If you want to stop drinking as much, then maybe you say, all right, some people say, I'm just going to stop drinking. That's really hard to just do cold turkey. Or I'm just going to stop drinking, during the week. Again, depending upon the person and how alcohol affects them, that can be hard. But maybe you try to do this. I did this with meat, and I mentioned this in some of my other previous episodes. The channel is changing a little bit, so some videos are going to drop out, some videos are going to add on. Just doing a little bit of rebranding for that middle-aged guy, your boy Diversified. But I did this a little bit with eating less meat, eating less red meat, and eating less meat, period. Is I had a family member that decided about coming up on 5 years ago, they decided that they wanted to become a vegetarian. And in solidarity, I decided, especially since we eat a lot of meals together, I decided to start Meatless Monday. Now, I'm a carnivore. I'm a meat eater. I eat my vegetables, but, every meal has to have meat in it. So I just said, you know what, in solidarity, I'm going to start doing Meatless Mondays. And it's coming up on me now. It's been over 2 years, maybe about, say, close to 30 months. So, and have I done it every Monday? No. In a 52-week year, I might do Meatless Monday 40 weeks out of the year. 35. Do you know how much less meat I've eaten in that time period? How much I've diversified my my diet, my eating habits? And I still could do more. I still could become more educated on different alternatives and different other flavors and other shit like that. And it just makes me more powerful, it makes me more healthy. But that change didn't come from me deciding to become vegetarian and cutting out all meat. That wasn't going to happen. It didn't even come from me making some declaration about it. It just came from me saying, you know what? And this is on the real. I said, okay, the weekends, you know what I'm saying? I might go out, friends, family might come in town, who knows? I might eat some meat. I don't want to restrict my diet. Sunday, if it's football season, I'm going to be watching the game or something, or in front of the laptop doing some work, watching the game or something, I might eat some meat. Different other times on Thursday, depending upon my activities or schedule. And so Monday was a day that I was like, you know what, maybe after eating meat all weekend or eating meat, and snacking out on Sunday, I'll be disciplined on Monday. That's 1 out of 7 days. That's what, 14.27%, I think. I'm a fraction nerd, math nerd. So 1 out of 7 days. In 1 day, just having self-discipline, remember? Just having the self-discipline for 1 day to not eat meat that day, cut my reduction of meat by 14.25%. And sometimes I sneak in the second day, so now you're talking about 29% of my diet, of a reduction in meat. That's just healthy for me in my middle age, for different other people in our middle ages, as we, get up there, as the numbers add up. So it takes self-discipline, because there's many days I'm like, oh shit, when is this day over so I can dig into some tacos or something tomorrow? I need some, some shredded chicken, but it is what it is. And so it's internal and it's incremental. That's the first thing. So anybody talking about a New Year's Eve resolution, they're ignoring the fact that real change is internal and incremental. The second thing, because I really had to dig into the internal and incremental part. The second thing is a lot of times when people make their New Year's resolutions, it's coming from an emotional place. Now, emotions are very interesting. I got a couple of books that talk about emotions. And my one book that I really, really like a lot, I call it like my strategic Bible. And I've mentioned it in other videos. I think it's Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War. Anyway, go check it out. It's not all about war, but it's got some really, really good lessons, stories that you could use to self-discipline yourself. So anyway, in that book in particular, it talks about how emotions are funny because in a certain way, they propel us. Our actions are propelled by our feelings, our emotions. Feelings and emotions are not necessarily the same thing. I think there's a little bit of difference, but our actions are propelled by our feelings, our emotions. And so it's just natural. But our emotions can be poisonous. Our emotions need to be held in check. Our emotions are like a fire. Remember that fire, that internal fire? Emotions are kind of like a fire, an internal combustion that can propel you, but it also could blow your shit up. And it's done that for me in both ways. So, but emotions, like I say, they're not bad, but you have to really, really analyze them and then analyze what you want to do with them. Because a lot of times in that switch right there, in that transition, you get to the heart of really what your intent is. Your emotions are valid. They're inside. They're what you feel. They're valid. They're what you feel. Even if you're fucking confused and wrong about everything outside of that, outside of you, your emotions are valid. But what you choose to do with your emotions, that's what could get you either in jail or getting keys to the city. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's just a variance in what you do with those emotions is what I'm saying. So a lot of times when people make their New Year's resolutions, they're coming from a place of emotion that you really are not going to build upon. Especially if you're drinking. Drinking is I think it's pretty hard for most people to drink and then like build something on top of that mindset. Drinking's not really for building something. It's for other purposes. But a lot of people, even if they're not drinking, they're not drunk. If you're coming from, say, a hurt place, it's hard to build upon that because really, really what you want is to not feel hurt. You want a certain amount of change. But are you really going to stick to this New Year's resolution that you're putting in print, you're putting it in stone, it's not part of the 10 Commandments, and you're not going to live up to it like that because emotions come and go. Emotions are like a wave that you can ride, but it could wipe you out. You need to stay on top of it. You know what I'm saying? It's not bad, but don't fall in love with it because, it could get you fucked up. So when people a lot of times make New Year's resolutions, the New Year's resolutions that succeed are usually the ones that are not built upon hurt emotions and definitely not alcoholic emotions. So if you're coming from a place where I may not be describing this the best. You have a certain pride that you want to instill in yourself. You have a certain pride, and like I said, it all goes back to that self. It goes back to that internal flame that you're trying to fan, you're trying to continue to feed, and you don't need anything external. You need to prove it to yourself. You need to want to make it happen, and you're going to fail. You're going to fall, and you're going to get back up, and you're going to do it again. You're going to take 2 steps, and you're going to fall. And you're going to get back up, and you're going to do it again. You're going to take 4 steps, and you're going to fall. And that's how you make the fucking change. And all of that's hard to articulate when you're emotional on New Year's Eve or leading up to New Year's Eve, and you're like, when the calendar flips, my whole world changes. No, it won't. Because it doesn't happen like that. It could change, but it takes time. It's internal and incremental, and you have to ride through emotions. We all have shit that we are dealing with out here, but how many people have had days where they're feeling good, and then something happens and it drops? Or how many days where people are feeling shitty, and, they realize that really life ain't all that bad for them? It's about perspective. Emotions change. Situations change. How you feel about the shit changes. So, for you to make a declaration on your life based upon how you feel right this moment, that's hard. That's hard to live up to that, and most people don't. So when you see people do it, if you were a betting person, probably 8 out of 10 times, if you bet, you would win. That person is not really going to implement that change for the next year, because they're making that change. They're trying to make that change based upon emotion right now. What happens January 17th? What happens in March or April? What happens in July? You haven't even gotten through, you just gotten past most of the year. What happens when things have changed, emotions have changed, situations have changed? All of that's pretty much the outside. What's changed on the inside? And if nothing has changed on the inside, you still want it, you're still committed, you still want to prove it to yourself, you can make that change. I'd bet on you. Then I'd bet on you, because you know that you're going to fall and you're going to get up. You know you're going to get up, and then you're going to fall, and you're going to get up, and you're going to get... This is the type of thing the type of shit they need to preach in churches, instead of shaming you and wagging their finger and sticking their hands out. It needs to be about, look, that real change you want to make starts inside. Just be honest. And that gets to the third part. Be honest. Just be honest. If you can't be honest with yourself, you can never get to a point of self-discipline. And then you can never get to a point of self-mastery. You can never become a Jedi if you can't be honest with the fact that, you didn't cut yourself a bunch of times and you're goofy. You're clumsy. You get what I'm saying, though? You have to be honest with why you're trying to make this change. So it ties into emotion. And when emotion is also like a fog. Can be pleasant. I really, really do like a fog. I love a nice thick fog. Even at some of my parties, I got a nice fog machine. I love a fog. But a fog could also have you driving off a cliff, driving into somebody or something. So what I'm saying is emotions is also like a fog. It's hard sometimes to really, really tell the truth about what you see in a fog. But you should know what's internal. Fog ain't got nothing to do with what's internal. So you got to be honest about why you're trying to make this New Year's resolution, why you're trying to make this change. And if you're trying to make this change, again, because honestly, I'm coming from a position of hurt. I'm coming from a position of, we'll even call it weakness. Really, you just want to change. You just want an improvement. So maybe if you do a little bit of what you said you're going to do and you get that change, that's all you needed to do. You don't want to feel like an alcoholic anymore. You don't want to feel like a shitty parent. You don't want to feel like a shitty worker. You don't want to feel like a shitty relative, or whatever the situation is that you're feeling bad about yourself, that you want to change because you're not happy with where you're at and you want to improve. Then, like I said, a certain amount of improvement And you might feel like that's all you needed to do. I just wanted to not feel bad. I just wanted to not feel shitty. Well, then that's all it's going to be. The rest of 2026, 2027, 2020, the rest, like, you're not going to continue to self-discipline yourself the rest of the year, because the moment that you feel better, that's all you needed. But for the people who are really, really going to make the change, the feeling better part is from them doing it. Do you see what I'm saying? There are some people who make the declaration of a New Year's Eve resolution for other people to hear. Those always fail. There's some people who make the New Year's resolution because they really do want to change, but it's coming from a certain place of hurt. And they have to be honest about that. It's definitely not going to work if they're not honest about it. But it's coming from a certain place of hurt. And if they get a certain amount of improvement, they're good. But the people who usually live up to these New Year's resolutions, it wasn't about New Year's. It was internal. It was incremental. It was not based upon hurt emotions. And they were honest with themselves that the change itself, the action of doing the change, is the reward. Think about it. When that child first starts walking, and again, I say whoever it is, because some people start walking later in life and some people unfortunately never get a chance to walk. But when that person starts walking, they're not disappointed because they didn't walk to the end of the block. They're not disappointed because they didn't get to run a marathon. They're excited. Their world has changed because they took a step. That was change. They took 2 steps. That was change. They fell down. Fuck that. That don't matter. They got back up and they're taking steps. And then little by little, next thing you know, even yourself now, how many walks have you taken? How many journeys have you taken were started with 1 step? You didn't even know where you were going. You just knew you had to take a step. You took a step. You took another step. Several steps. Got lost in thought. Or you're concentrating in thought. And the next thing you know, you look back. So, real change is like that. And I got another story I'm going to introduce about real change. So check out some of the other videos. This your boy, Diversified, that middle-aged guy. You know how I do. I'll holler at you.